I'm Shelley Hawthorne Smith, and I work in the Graduate College of the University of Arizona. Danielle, I'm just going to give you a minute to introduce yourself real quick.
Great. Thanks so much, Shelley. Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Barefoot. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Assistant Director of the Office of Nationally Competitive Scholarships. But for those of you who don't know me, I do work with various scholarships that I'm going to talk about today, and I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about you all.
I'm going to take about the first half of the talk, and I'm going to kind of zoom through a bunch of information. But my job is to help graduate students find and apply for external funding. We're going to kind of talk about the big picture of funding for graduate school and then focus on opportunities that are external to the institution to which you enroll. But I did want to say it is so great that all of you are doing this program over the summer. And the research that you're doing over the summer is excellent experience, not only to get into graduate school, but then also to get these really competitive awards. So I hope that you, I know that it's hard to take in a lot of information, in 30 minutes, but I hope that you just kind of put this on your list of things to do and things to talk about with your current advisor and your future advisors. So if we don't achieve anything else, then I just hope that we do achieve your tendency to talk about this subject with people who advise you and your peers too. Peers can be one of the best sources of information. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have a presentation that will be available. I have a lot of links and things, so you can look at them later if they're helpful. So I'm just going to leave it in this mode. I find it a little bit easier. Okay, so this is me, and as I said, I'm under the Graduate College, and we're the Office of Fellowships and Community Engagement, and the director of the office is Georgia Ehlers. I'm the assistant director. We have a ton of information on our website, so I encourage you to just go and look around a little bit. So if you are thinking about graduate school, probably one of the first things on your mind is how to pay for it. And I've tried to list all of the ways that you can possibly pay for graduate school, and I've listed them in sort of like least preferable to most preferable. So loans are an option, and for a lot of people, they're a good option. And I would say that throughout the span of a graduate education, there are times when they're the best option. So be sure to kind of keep on top of information about loans. Then there's savings. So some people do work for a while and save money, use that for graduate school. You can work outside of a university. So a lot of people do have a part-time or full-time job that is not related to the graduate work that they're doing, and use that to fund their education. And then there's employee benefits. So there are a number of employees who will pay for you to go to school. Locally in Tucson, I know Microsoft, Raytheon, the University of Arizona. If you get a job here, you get great benefits for going to school. And a job is different than a graduate assistant position. Then there's tuition waivers, and those are often granted by the department that you're in. And then teaching and research assistantships. These are the most common ways to pay for graduate school, and these are terrific. Usually you get really good either teaching or research or other experience while you're going to graduate school. They don't pay tremendously, but they are a good way to pay for graduate school. There's fellowships from inside the university. These are either university-wide fellowships, or they can be college-wide or department-wide. And so as you are applying to different programs at different universities, it's a good idea to kind of keep in mind what is available at that level. Finally, we're going to focus on the last one, which is external funding. So these are from often government agencies, but sometimes foundations, we'll talk about the sources, but from resources outside of the university. So this is external funding. So it's a good idea to be on top of everything that's in the scholarships and financial aid. If you're at the University of Arizona, this is the link that is most helpful, but every school will have a similar office. And you want to be sure to continue to file the FAFSA and give access to the schools you're considering. I would say that as you go to graduate school, financial need is less important than it is in undergrad, but it still is sometimes a requirement. So this is why it's a good idea to file the FAFSA. And then another thing that I think is really helpful and really important to do is to do some thinking about and use calculators to decide how much your degree is worth. So you don't go to graduate school usually only, although it can be to get a better salary, but there's usually other reasons as well. But it is hard when students come to me at the end of their degree and there's really not a lot of jobs for them and they have big loans. So just be sure that you're thinking ahead about these kinds of things. We're going to talk briefly about internal university funding. As you are applying, just be sure that you're talking with your prospective departments about what they offer and the resources that they have. This varies tremendously. There's a lot of programs that will guarantee full funding, and then there's other programs that will maybe guarantee a year or part of each year. But you do just need to keep this in mind as you are applying, along with, of course, who's doing what kind of research and all of that. This is another important element to keep in mind. So you want to do your background research, ask around what people are usually granted when they start the program. It's a good idea to have an idea of what big grants your unit has. So faculty are usually applying to grants like from NSF or NIH or Department of Energy. And if their department has some of these big grants, then that usually is a good sign for you as a graduate student. And then there's I just listed a number of other things that are important to keep in mind. Then it is a good idea to reach out to those faculty who are doing work that's interest to you and talk with those professors about why you are interested in their program and what you can bring to their program. I think as a student, you often think about how you will learn from the program that you're going to, but they also benefit from you. And don't forget that as you are reaching out to professors. As you are connecting with admission staff and faculty, remember that every single interaction that you have is an interview. And so just treat every interaction with that kind of respect. Graduate assistantships are usually granted within a department. So for example, people in the English department are hired to teach English, and in chemistry, they'll be teaching Chemistry 101. However, there are also other units on every campus who will be hiring graduate students. So for example, the graduate college hires a number of graduate students. Student affairs. I know a number of students who have worked for like Residence Life and gotten free housing throughout graduate school. So don't forget that there's other units on campus, and like the Cancer Center, or there's like a Southwest Institute for Research on Women. So there's just a number of centers around campus who do hire. However, you need to pay attention to what their level of responsibility is and what the pay is, because this is not consistent across a university. Usually your non-resident tuition is waived, but you'll still have some tuition. Sometimes the full tuition is waived. And then there's other benefits, which are just sort of good to keep in mind as you're looking around. I divided the assistantships into three kinds that are sort of common. Usually it's either teaching, research, and then sometimes there's what's called an outreach assistantship, which pays you to do some kind of work in the community. So I just gave some examples of university funding at the University of Arizona. So where do I find information? I would say that almost always it's good to look online, but really talking to people is almost always the best resource that you have. And so be sure to keep that as part of the conversation and be aware of the tools that they have here at the University of Arizona. You probably know about Scholarship Universe. It's not perfect, but it can be really helpful to use these tools. I'm just going to pause briefly and ask if there's any questions about internal funding before I go on to external funding. Okay, we'll go on to external funding. So there are, in graduate school, different types of awards. And it's really important to know that when you are thinking about graduate school, there's a pool of awards that you are eligible for as like incoming student that you will probably not be eligible for again. So this is the really good time to start making lists of possible opportunities. So these are the early graduate awards. And then next, there's some travel awards. These are often for international work, but then there's smaller awards for like presenting at conferences or doing research. Then there's internship funding. And then at the dissertation level, there's usually funding for the research and then funding for the write-up. So those are often two different pools of funding. Then there's postdocs, and then kind of all along there's honors prizes, kind of all along the road. So where does this money come from? A lot of it is government funding, and this can be federal, state, or local. I'd say most of the funding is probably federal. Then there's international sources, especially for traveling. Foundation funding, the Ford Foundation is a big one. There's the American Association of University Women. Professional organizations are a really good source. They're usually not huge awards, but sometimes they are. And even little awards can be really helpful. Other universities, you would think that they would just support their own students, which is often true, but there's interesting awards that will go across universities. And then there's commercial and industry supports like Facebook, Microsoft. Usually these are more like technical ones, but there's some like in agriculture too that I've seen. Okay, so here's some examples of a few fellowships. And actually, Danielle is going to go into detail with a lot of these. But I noticed Danielle did not have the NSF GRFP on there. So I'm going to just quickly come over to, if you don't know about the NSF GRFP, and if you are in the UBRP program, and if you are thinking about going to graduate school, you should definitely be aware of this award. It is a great award because it gives you both your tuition and then $34,000 a year of 3 years of support. And then there's a lot of flexibility, and then it opens up other possibilities. And I'd also say that of all the awards that I work with, I think this is one of the best to apply to in terms of just really thinking about what you want to do and who you want to work with. Out of all the awards, it's not really that hard to apply to, although any fellowship is a lot of work. But if you are going to be a senior next year and you're applying to a graduate school, then you definitely should apply for this award. There's usually $2,000 a year, but I think they're bumping it up to $2,500 this year. So it's a lot of awards. And overall, applying to it is a good experience. So I would definitely urge you to think of this award. So how do you find external fellowships? There are a lot of fellowships. I'm always learning about new ones. And so I would say, as I said, talking to people is really important. When you go to conferences and somebody's doing research that's of interest to you, find out how they got the funding to do the award. And then there's a lot of online tools. So I will show you a few of them. I'm going to quickly show. Okay, so we have this a page on our website about for resources for finding funding. And I'm going to just quickly take you there. I'm going to say that if you're just sort of doing a quick look to start with, you probably want to start with like UCLA or University of Illinois, because they have these databases that are only for graduate students or postdoctoral students. So you can do a quick search and you'll find a lot of things that don't pertain to you, but you'll probably get a list of like 200 awards that are possibilities, and you can skim through the names and see if any are relevant to you and the work that you want to do. So if you do a quick look at these, you probably will be able to find a couple that you could apply to. Then it's a good idea to start to have a look at a database like Pivot or Grant Forward. They are really big databases. They have a lot of funding for not just graduate students, but for researchers, for people in companies. So it takes a little time to figure out how to search these, but it's definitely worth your time because they are great tools, and you'll find really interesting things. Not only funding, but you'll end up finding like organizations that do specific kinds of research that are of interest to you. So I definitely, at some point, you might not be quite ready, but definitely use those at some point. Okay, if you want something more simple, you can look at our grad funding newsletter. So we send this out once a month, but just look at this favorite fellowships. This is from last fall. We're working on our next one, but this is a list of just sort of big ones that you can have a look at. So I have a sort of a whole list of ways to find funding or tools to find funding. So I'm going to give you just a few tips for success. One of the things that is interesting to me is that when agencies are deciding who they want to fund, what they're doing is agencies have these goals about the change they want to create in the world. And they're looking for people who will create that change. And so if you can determine some long-term goals for yourself about the kinds of problems that you want to solve and the kinds of things that you want to make happen in the world, and define those, that will help you a lot. And everybody knows that nobody knows the future. So you don't have to feel tied to these. But if you can create just like a sentence or two that can summarize the kind of work that you want to do in the world, then that will really help you a lot in your applications. And again, you don't have to feel tied to these, but the more that you can articulate these in a compelling way, the easier it is to sort of create a narrative about who you are and what you want to do. So I would say that's my first suggestion. Pursue what really interests you. It's amazing how like you can really tell when people are doing the work that is really compelling to them. It's take advantage of things like you're doing this summer. So research, service, any leadership that you can do is really helpful. And I can't emphasize how important it is to really get to know your professors and employers and make sure that you know one another on a personal level. That really makes a huge difference. And then I have a few other suggestions there. So letters of recommendation. These are a little bit of the wild card in all funding applications. These are really important. And you are probably going to need at least 3 or 4 good letters of recommendation. So be sure that you know 3 or 4 people who can write these letters for you. So get to know your professors. When you're asking for letters of recommendation, be really organized, have preferably drafts of your applications for them to read. I would say it's helpful if you can ask somebody, can you write a strong letter of recommendation for me? Because the thing that you definitely do not want is a mediocre letter of recommendation. And then you would be surprised at how often letters of recommendation do not get turned in. So I always say, like, everybody's going to know the deadline for a fellowship. But if you can commit to turning in your materials like a day or two early and telling your recommenders that you're doing this and asking them to do the same, then you have a little bit of space where you can tell them, hey, I have everything in, please, can you get your letters in, just to ease my state of mind. So I would say if you can do that, that is hugely helpful. So I have 3 things you can do right now. And the first thing is to make a funding friend. It's so interesting in this position. I've been in this position about 10 years, and the people who are most successful are people who have a group of friends and they help each other out and say, what are you applying to? Can I read your draft? And they really encourage each other. So if you can do that, that will be a big help to you. Secondly, just have a spreadsheet or some tool that you use to keep track of funding opportunities, because you'll hear of things and you'll be a year or 2 out and not be prepared to apply at that point. But it's good to know ahead of time and start thinking about these. And then if you can keep your CV and resume updated, that will be a huge help to you. So here's some places you can get help. We're happy to talk to you. In the Office of Fellowships and Community Engagement, we have this newsletter that I showed you. We have information sessions throughout the fall. And then we also have application development programs. And these are programs where we give you early deadlines. So for example, if you're applying to the NSF GRFP, the deadline is in October. So we give you deadlines like in late September, early September and then late September, where you can turn in drafts to us and we'll give you feedback on those applications. So good luck. I will say that it is easy to talk about fellowships, but it's hard to apply. And a part of the journey is just doing it and getting some fellowship applications in and failing and not getting them. There's nobody who's successful with this who is also not successful. So you learn with each application, and you also create better connections with each application. And a big part of this is luck and just getting the right reviewers and finding the right opportunities. So I would really encourage you to just start trying for maybe small things and consider this part of your professional development as you grow as a professional. So I don't want to impinge on Danielle's time, but if anybody has a quick question, I'd be happy to answer it.
I was wondering how gap years can tend to affect your ability to get these kinds of fellowships.
Gap years are great. Sometimes advisors don't suggest it, but people who have a little bit of experience outside of academia are often much more competitive for these fellowships. The only thing I would say is that when you step out of academia, you stop having people remind you of these things. So if you let's say you graduate next spring and you take a year off, just whenever you are in the process of applying to graduate school, a couple months before that, you should be applying to these other opportunities. So it makes the timeline a little bit trickier, but in general, I would say not just a gap year, but even a gap few years can be really advantageous.
One thing that I would just say, though, is that if there are certain fellowships that you know that you want to apply for, make sure that you're looking at the eligibility criteria before you decide to take a gap year. With some of the ones that I'm about to talk about, you can age out. So there's an age limit or also a time from graduation that you would be eligible to apply. Mm-hmm. So just being cognizant of those things too.
I had a quick question. So what about the availability of these fellowships and scholarships for international students?
Yeah, thank you. Because a lot of them are funded through the government, it is harder for international students to find opportunities. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Oops. However, I will also say that for students, international students who want to apply, I think international students get discouraged sometimes. But there are opportunities, and the opportunities get greater as you go along. So I'd say there are probably fewer as you're starting out, but then there tends to be more opportunities as you continue. And I really try to make resources for international students available on the website. So I do have a few articles here, and then I have a few examples of other international students who have been successful in applying for fellowships. So feel free to take a look on the website too.
Okay, cool. So I was asking, when is a good time to apply for these fellowships, given that you know when you're going to start grad school?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is not for every single fellowship, but almost all the big fellowships, the deadlines are like October-ish okay, so they're like in the fall, and then the announcements are made in the spring, and then the funding starts the next year. So you have to really be thinking ahead with all of these. And so many students are like, I'm not ready to apply. And it feels like that, but you just have to remember that everybody who is applying is in that same boat. So this is also true. So this is true for those early awards, but also once you get to the dissertation stage, people think, oh, I'm not ready to write a proposal about my dissertation because my proposal hasn't been approved yet. But if you wait until you know everything about your dissertation work, it's too late. Then you have to be applying for those write-up awards. So it feels really early, but that's just how it is for everyone. So yeah, that's a really great question. I actually should have more information than that on the presentation. I'm going to turn this over to Danielle, but it's great to meet all of you, and feel free to reach out via email, especially if you're applying to the NSF GRFP, and send me an email, and I can set you up with some help along the way. So thank you.
I know that this is going to be Info Dump 101 for y'all, and I apologize for that in advance, but there's really no good way to give the initial overview of these types of scholarships and awards that I work with without this info dump. So these are some select scholarship opportunities for you all as you're participating in UBRP. Most of them are geared especially towards students in the STEM fields. As Shelley noted, I did not include the NSF GRFP in my presentation. One of the reasons for that is because her office does work with applicants. So that's something I always encourage students to go and seek out, but I don't usually include a lot of information about it beyond just a general go talk to Shelley in the Office of Fellowships and Community Engagement, because I don't work with that. So the Office of Nationally Competitive Scholarships is housed in the Honors College, but we do not just serve honors students. We also serve all undergraduates, graduate students, and alumni who are interested in applying in the scholarships within our purview. The purpose of this office is to raise awareness about nationally competitive scholarships, to recruit prospective applicants, and offer support as you hopefully will be preparing and polishing your materials. And then we also facilitate the process of institutional review and endorsement for those applications and award competitions that require institutional endorsement and nomination. So why should you apply? This is a big question. Shelley touched on several of these reasons, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail here. But in short, applying for these sorts of awards as an undergraduate student, a recent alumni, or as a graduate student will not only further your intellectual development, it will also help you to immerse yourself more fully in a rich and challenging academic environment. Also, in terms of extracurriculars, some of these scholarships definitely want to see leadership and ambassadorial potential. So keeping in mind those things as well, gaining experience, building relationships, both domestic and internationally, cross-cultural collaborations, leadership skills, and bolstering professional qualifications and networks. So some of the scholarships that I'm going to talk about today are the DoD, Department of Defense SMART Scholarship, the Goldwater Scholarship, the Astronaut Scholarship, the Amgen Scholarship, the Churchill Scholarship, the Gates Cambridge Scholarship, the Rhodes, Marshall, and Mitchell Scholarships, those we call colloquially the UK postgrads, the Fulbright, and the Knight Hennessy. With all of these, this is just going to be a quick run through. I apologize for this but as you can see from the list, it's quite a number of awards. And I did note in the slide, which for each of these awards, which can be shared with you, I did share a PowerPoint copy with Marissa and Jennifer. So hopefully they can make that available in like a box folder or something like that. But with each of these scholarships, I tried to note the field, eligibility, GPA, how much time or like what sort of eligibility qualifications you might need in terms of time till degree or something like that, what it covers, and then what the purpose is. So we'll get started with the DoD SMART. This award is for students in science, mathematics, engineering, technology. It really is geared towards creating this new group of people that are going to work with the federal government. The eligibility for this is citizens of the United States, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, or the United Kingdom at the time of application. You must be 18 years or older. So you can apply as soon as you know that you're going to begin and you're admitted to a university. So this is something you can apply to since you're all participating in this program. If you meet the citizenship requirements and the GPA requirements and the time till degree, you can apply for this. And there's also a DoD award for graduate studies as well, that's slightly different from this. But this award covers full tuition, monthly stipend, health insurance, book allowance, and they set you up with a summer internship of 8 to 12 weeks. So say that you applied in the fall of your first year as a student. In theory, you could have 3 years of internships potentially with the DoD SMART. One of the requirements of this award is that you would complete work with the federal government following graduation, but this is a great way to get experience and build connections. And also some of the national labs pay extremely well. So I would encourage you to keep your options open. A scholarship that you can apply to in your sophomore or junior year is the Goldwater Scholarship, named for Barry Goldwater, who was a senator from Arizona and ran for president. I think he was a senator. Sorry. The award covers $7,500 a year for undergraduate studies in the natural sciences, engineering, and math. So this is for those of you who are U.S. citizens or permanent residents. And you can apply for this, again, sophomore, junior year. So you would need at least 2 or 3 years left, have a minimum 3.0 GPA, and the desire to pursue graduate studies in your field, preferably at the doctoral or with the MD, PhD combo level. This application is one of those that does require University of Arizona nomination ahead of the national competition. We're able to nominate 4 and potentially a 5th person, so long as one of the 5 candidates is a transfer student. With this scholarship, the application opens the Tuesday following Labor Day, which this year I believe is the 7th of September. Yes, September 7th is when the application will open this year. You can visit goldwater.scholarsapply.org to apply for the scholarship. You'll submit a pre-application at first, and then that will be reviewed and approved. If there's questions, it might not be approved immediately. You may be requested to meet with myself or Dr. Karna Walter. For this scholarship, you need to submit a biographical application, a research essay of no more than 3 pages, 3 letters of recommendation, and a transcript. And an unofficial transcript is fine. What they're looking for this award is a commitment to research career, intellectual intensity, and a potential for future contribution to the field. In the same vein is the Astronaut Scholarship, which provides up to $15,000 for undergraduate students in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math. This award is also for sophomores and juniors. So as long as you have at least 2 or 3 years left before graduation, and that you plan to pursue research at the master's, preferably PhD level, again, for the astronaut. Application materials include a CV, personal statement, 2 recommendation letters, and transcripts. And the selection criteria is creativity, research potential, and drive. as well as leadership. This scholarship actually also requires campus nomination. We are able to nominate 2 students, and usually, at least one of the 2 was also one of our nominees for Goldwater. Is how it usually works out. Sometimes both of the people were nominated for Goldwater. So I would say people usually apply for Goldwater and astronaut. It's kind of a 1-2 punch in terms of when the scholarships run and with the competition. So Goldwater opens up in September, astronaut opens up in December, and then the national deadlines for both are in the spring semester. I saw that there's a question in the chat, but I will come back to it. For those of you who are interested in biomedical engineering, biomedical technologies, I would recommend you check out the Amgen Scholarship. It's kind of akin to an NSF, not GRFP, an NSF REU, which is a research experience for undergraduates, except it's focused solely on the area of biomedical or biotech. They have over 15 different partner institutions. This is for students who are sophomores or juniors or non-graduating seniors with a 3.2 plus GPA. This application does not require any sort of institutional nomination, and it does cover the full cost of the summer program, including travel there. You get a stipend. They also put you up with lodging for the duration. And you get to attend at the end of the summer a session on with other applicants who are participating and selected. So everybody that's doing their research over the summer, you all meet up and have a big consortium where everyone shares what they've been doing over the summer, and it's a chance to network as well. So this is a great opportunity. Some of the institutions that participate with Amgen include Caltech, the National Institutes of Health, Cal Berkeley, Harvard, MIT, Washington, St. Louis, Johns Hopkins, Duke. So there's a rotating, there can be rotating institutions, but for the past few years, probably for obvious reasons, it's been a little static. An award that you would apply to in the fall of your senior year is the Churchill Scholarship, which is for a 1-year intensive research degree at Churchill College of Cambridge University. The foundation awards 15 scholarships to pursue either an MPhil or an MAST degree in science, math, or engineering. The different degrees that are available, you can peruse those on churchillscholarship.org. In terms of eligibility, you need to be either a senior or a recent graduate, so within 12 months of graduation. And the application materials include a Cambridge application. So you must also apply for study at Cambridge University, a program of study, 1 page, a personal statement, 2 pages, 4 letters of recommendation, correspondence with a faculty member with whom you would want to research with. This is an award that does require University of Arizona nomination. So that is due normally a month out from the national deadline. And this fall, the national deadline is on Monday, November the 1st. So our campus deadline will be sometime around the 4th of October. In terms of selection criteria, they're really looking for academic achievement, research talent, and potential and personal qualities. They like people who are a little rough around the edges. And this is a really fantastic scholarship if you have done extensive research as an undergraduate, and especially with publications, presentations. And as you can tell, some of these scholarships build on each other. So if you're applying for things in your first, second, third year ahead of your senior year, as a senior, you can apply for things like the Churchill, the NSF GRFP, a Fulbright that I'm going to talk about in a minute, Rhodes, Marshall, which I'll talk about in a second as well, the Knight Hennessy. So these things can build on each other. Also at Cambridge, and something that you can apply to if you're applying for the Churchill, because you have to apply for admission to Cambridge for this award as well, is the Gates Cambridge Scholarship. This is for 35 different scholarships to pursue postgraduate degrees in any field at any level. So from the master's all the way up through a PhD at Cambridge University. These will exclude clinical degrees in all cases for all of the international awards that I'm going to talk about today. In terms of eligibility, we recommend seniors and recent graduates, so alumni are still eligible to apply. There's no age limit, and you do not have to go through a nomination process here at the University of Arizona. The application materials are in the portal, so you will apply for admission to Cambridge, and then in that application, you can unlock the application to the Gates Cambridge Scholarship. Citizens of any country outside of the United Kingdom may apply for this award, and what they're looking for is intellectual ability, leadership potential, commitment to improving the lives of others, and that you're a good fit for Cambridge and also the mission of the scholarship. Another UK-based award is the Rhodes Scholarship. In this session, I'm going to talk exclusively about the information for the US constituency, but there are awards for international constituencies all over the globe. So if you are a student that does not have US citizenship, I would encourage you to check out rhodes.ox.ac.uk/scholarship/scholarship. The Rhodes is the oldest major award available. They award in the US constituency 32 scholarships a year to pursue a degree in any field at the University of Oxford. This award is available to seniors. So you apply in the fall of your senior year ahead of starting that next fall after you graduate. And recent graduates, so long as you were between the ages of 18 and 23 years of age. The citizenship requirements depend on the constituency that you're applying through. And so for US citizens, and for the US constituency, you can either be a US citizen, national permanent resident, or a resident with DACA status. They have some information about those things on their website, so I would encourage you to check that out. With the application materials, they have a basic biographical application, personal statement, resume, and academic statement, which is new this year. And then they require 5 to 8 letters of reference, which is the most by far. In terms of selection criteria, they're looking for scholarly achievement, character, commitment to the common good, and leadership potential. If you're noticing a theme with leadership potential, that's something that most of these awards will be looking for. Another in the United Kingdom is the Marshall Scholarship. It's very similar to the Rhodes, except for you can apply for the Marshall to study at any institution in the United Kingdom in any field. They're looking for seniors and recent graduates within 24 months. There's no age limit, but there is a GPA requirement, and that is 3.7, and only US citizens and nationals may apply. This award was created post-World War II as a thank you from the British government to the United States and to try and maintain those open ambassadorial relationships. So what they're looking for here is academic merit, leadership potential, and ambassadorial potential. That's the 3 main criteria. And the application reflects that. Most of the essays ask about academics, leadership, and ambassadorship. The Mitchell is another of the UK scholarships. This is for postgraduate study for a master's degree at any institution in Ireland or Northern Ireland. The eligibility is seniors and recent graduates with a bachelor's degree between the ages of 18 to 29 years of age, and you must be a US citizen or national to apply. The Mitchell, Marshall, and Rhodes all require University of Arizona nomination. For nomination consideration, you would need to submit your materials to my office by August the 25th, which is a Wednesday. And then from there will be campus interviews to decide the nominees ahead of the national deadlines, which occur between late September and early October. For this award, they're also looking for academic excellence, leadership, and a commitment to public service. The big award I work with is the Fulbright Scholarship. This information on this slide pertains to US citizens who want to go abroad to either conduct research, to study for a degree, if eligible in a country, or to serve as an English teaching assistantship. This scholarship is open to all different degree programs. So if you have, it doesn't matter what major you're in, my recommendation to you would be to scope out what country you're interested in, what kind of research, or if you might want to teach English or something like that, and check out the countries that have options. In terms of the application, there's a personal statement, a statement of grant purpose. Depending on the country that you're applying to, there might be a language evaluation. And if you're applying for a study research award, there's a required letter of affiliation for most countries, but not all. In terms of selection criteria, they're looking for quality and feasibility of the proposed project. If for a study research award, academic record, language and other preparation, and then fit with the Fulbright mission, which is all about cultural exchange and mutual understanding. And if you're an international student, I would recommend you consult with foreign.fulbrightonline.org. That is the website for the awards for international students to come here to the US on graduate degrees. The last of the scholarships that I'm going to talk about, is the Knight Hennessy. This one will probably perk up your attention if you've zoned out. This is for postgraduate study in any field at Stanford University. This includes master's degrees, PhDs, and dual degrees. So something like an MD PhD combo. It also includes professional degrees like an MD or a MPH, a JD, an MBA, so forth. This scholarship, you can apply. There's no citizenship requirements. So anyone from around the world may apply. However, there is a limitation of when you can apply. You may only apply within 5 years of receiving your undergraduate award, degree. Anything after 5 years out, you would not be eligible to apply. And you have to also, in addition to applying to the Knight Hennessy application, you would also apply to the program that you're planning to apply to as well. So you apply for admission to Stanford, and then there's a separate application on knight-hennessy.stanford.edu. And sorry, that's knight-hennessy.stanford.edu. And in some cases, there may be required testing for admission to a given program. The goal of the Knight Hennessy Scholarship is to create a cohort of global leaders, and this award funds up to the first 3 years of any full-time graduate degree program at Stanford University. And then from there, your funding would be kind of worked out between the Knight Hennessy and your program to cover your funding after the fact. One of the quirky things about their application is they ask for people to share 8 improbable facts about themselves, and those can be literally anything. So one of the things that you might want to start thinking about, in addition to your updating your resume and CV and your personal statement, is if somebody asks you to share something random about yourself or improbable, what might that be? Because sometimes that's a question in an interview. Tell us, something random about yourself, or tell us something unusual about an experience you've had, or something like that. To highlight some past winners, this is not updated with this year's awardees, but this year, Roberto Peralta, who I know is a familiar name to you, Marissa. He was selected as our astronaut scholar, and Abigail Collar was selected as our Goldwater scholar. Over the past few years, I have some images on the screens of some of the students. Last year, we had 4 Goldwater scholars. That was Angela Smith, Jamie Takashima, Pablo Rocha, and Daniel Wieland, and then Eric Liu was our astronaut scholar. Jamie actually did go on to be awarded an NSF GRFP for his graduate studies. That was this spring. In the past, we've also had most recently 2 Churchill scholars in 2016, 2017. Travis Sawyer is now a faculty member here in the College of Engineering, and the other person was Janie Wilkening. Both of them were selected as Churchill scholars, and they were also Goldwater scholars too. In terms of preparing to apply, Shelley went over some of this information, but it's really important to not only have good grades, but also to make connections with people both on and off campus. It's important to build and maintain those connections because those are the people that serve as references for you. And then those also might be the people who, if you apply for a major award but you're not selected, you might end up with a full ride to a grad program that might come through because that person knows you. Take advantage of the offerings on campus. You're already doing that as a participant in the UBRP program. Reflect on your long and short-term goals and think about what is your personal narrative and how do you build that network of people around you that can help support and build you up. I'm available to meet with you, and Dr. Karna Walter, who also works with ONCS, is also available to meet with you. Here's a quick chart of eligibility and timeline. I went over this information verbally, but this will be shared in the PowerPoint made available to you. We also have a newsletter. If you would like to subscribe, you can email oncs@arizona.edu and we'll subscribe you to it. And my contact info is D as in dog, barefoot @arizona.edu. Our website is honors.arizona.edu/ONCS. And you can look for me on Trellis by searching for Barefoot and schedule an appointment with me that way. And with that, we made it through the marathon. So I know that was a lot of information. The takeaway from all of this is that there is a lot of money out there. Half of the battle is learning the money is out there and when you can apply, what you should be thinking about applying for, what you might need to do to be eligible. So from today, now that you have a little bit of this information at your hands, I would recommend you just take it in, take some time, click around. If there was anything that was really appealing to you, I hope you jotted it down. If not, the PowerPoint will be there. The recording will be there. You can always go back. And so I'm happy to answer any questions because I know that I'm sure are lots. I saw one of the questions from Nick. Thanks, Nick. Does the nomination itself have an application? No, the application that you would submit for campus consideration for all of these awards would be the actual draft of the materials for a given award. So for Goldwater, it would be the full application, biographical application or draft of the research essay that was polished. We'd need the 3 letters of recommendation and the short answers that go with the biographical application. As an example, for Rhodes, we would need all of the letters of recommendation plus all of the application materials.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So I know that research is really important in general for all of the scholarship, but what would you say for a student who does not have much research scholarship, much research experience and is in the final year-ish, what would you suggest for them? Do you think it would be worth the time applying for the scholarships?
Depends on the scope of the scholarship. Yeah, it depends on the scope of the scholarship, honestly. For something like a Churchill, if you don't have research experience, you will not be competitive even at the campus level for campus nomination consideration. For a Fulbright, it doesn't necessarily matter if you have a lot of research experience pending what you're applying to do. And also pending your experiences. So it really, truly depends on the scope of the award. For most of them, as I'm sure you could tell with my repetition, leadership is the most important thing for a lot of those awards. So it's great to have experiences in other avenues, but it really depends on what the intersection of who you are, what you want to do, and what you have done where that all intersects, if that makes any sense. And it's all very award dependent for the things that I was talking about today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. And I think, Anna, did you have a question as well?
Yeah, I was wondering how those campus nominations work if you were an alumni, if you took a gap year and you still need those campus nominations.
Great question. So with those, what you would do is just be in touch with somebody from this office and say, I graduated last year. I have been up to XYZ things. Am I still competitive? Or you can also check out those websites and make sure in terms of age or time from degree that you would still be eligible for nomination consideration.